Welcome to T-Lokes, Tucson's local business podcast. I'm your host, L.Connor McGeverly, and in each episode, we embark on a journey to connect with the passionate minds behind the businesses and nonprofits that make our community thrive. Join me as I sit down with the owners, visionaries, and change makers who pour their hearts into shaping the local landscape. We explore the challenges, triumphs, and unique journeys that define Tucson's business community. From the corner coffee shop to the innovative startups and impactful nonprofits, T-Lokes is your window into the diverse stories that make our city special. Tune in and get ready to get connected. This is T-Lokes. Howdy, folks, and welcome to T-Lokes, your Tucson local business podcast. I'm your host, L.Connor McGeverly, and here in the studio with me today is nobody. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, we had a last-minute cancellation, and, stuff comes up, life happens. We'll get them next time. Two, my birthday is at the end of July. We had some events planned and scheduled, and so it was hard to schedule an interview within those times. So I thought, well, this is my podcast. Why not promote my own local business? L.Connor Voice, LLC. So L.Connor Voice LLC is my business I started about a year ago. I do audiobook production and podcast production. So for audiobooks, I perform, that is read, record, edit, mix, master audiobooks to ACX specifications, so books right to go on Audible. And I really, really love doing audiobooks. It's been great. I've read some great books. I've met some great people. And I'm very thankful for those experiences. But today I want to talk a little bit more about the podcast aspects of what I do. Yeah, because, this is a podcast. But if you are interested in my audiobook stuff, I'll put some links in the episode notes that you can go ahead and check out if you'd like. So today, like I said, we're going to talk more about the podcast aspects of what I do. So in a nutshell, we're going to kind of talk about what a podcast is, how a podcast could benefit your business, and how my services help my clients reach their podcast goals. So, podcasts. What are they? So, if you're listening to this, it's very likely that you know what a podcast is. They've been growing in popularity for over the past decade. I think there's a statistic that says about 26% of Americans have listened to a podcast within the past week. And, it's very likely that you know what a podcast is, but I don't want to leave anybody out. And so for the sake of defining things, let's define what a podcast is. So a podcast is a series of on-demand audio files that you can access via the internet or like a podcast distributor, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya, iHeartRadio, the list goes on. And while some podcasts have a video element, a majority of podcasts are exclusively an audio medium. So now that we have that defined, let me talk about why I think podcasts are so great. So I think podcasts are so great in that audio medium specifically because it allows you the chance to be entertained or educated, and in a lot of cases, both. While you are doing something, while you're driving, while you're doing chores, in some cases while you're working. And so it gives you this ability to kind of consume more content, which is nice. It's nice to be entertained. It's nice to be educated. And it's nice to feel like you're multitasking when otherwise doing something like driving a car. You can't watch a show when you're driving a car, or you really shouldn't. If you're doing that, knock that off. And when you think about that access to that amount of content, it makes sense when you hear that Apple Podcasts alone rivals Netflix in the amount of hours of content consumed daily. I mean, that makes a ton of sense, right? Like, doing chores, driving. You shouldn't be watching stuff, or you can't. Sometimes you fold laundry while watching something, or you bop around the house. But, when you have that podcast in your ears, you can go anywhere, and it's right in your ears, and you're not missing a beat. So that's why I like podcasts. I think that's why a lot of people like podcasts and why they're so popular. So now that we've talked a little bit about what a podcast is and why I think they're so great, I want to talk a little bit about how a podcast could benefit your business if you wanted to start a podcast for your business. So obviously there's a large pool of listeners, and while they do need to find you, you can rest assured that when they find you, they're going to want to listen to the content of your show. So, let's say you're doing true crime, but that has nothing to do with business. Your business should not be true crime. Let's say your business is real estate, and let's say like real estate law. When someone's looking for real estate law podcasts, they're going to find you there. They're going to be interested in hearing what you have to say. And so as a little sidebar, that's why it's important to have good quality. We'll come back to quality later, but the idea is there are so many niches. Niches? There's so many niches, and there are going to be people who want to listen to that niche genre. So that's why that's pretty great, have that captive audience. And also your show will be on demand. So let's say you cover a wide litany of topics. A listener can go and pick out what episodes are relevant, and that's pretty great. And they can listen at any time they want to. They don't have to wait. They can listen in the middle of the night. They can listen first thing in the morning or at high noon, whatever they like. So with podcasts, you can increase your visibility, your credibility, and your personability, all while building a community. You can position your brand as kind of like a thought leader. Because when you share good information, when you give a chance to educate people and, make sure you're putting out good information, you work to establish this trust and this credibility. And this whole time, when you're talking about these things, it's also important to let your personality through. Whatever you're talking about, whatever you have your podcast about, you should be very passionate about. And so people should hear that when you talk. And that'll allow you to humanize your brand. And, that tied with adding good information, you offer education, you offer entertainment, and you kind of raise your brand awareness without having to push sales. You can obviously advertise for your own business while you, do your podcast. I'm sure you've listened to mine. But, you don't need to necessarily push your business so hard. It allows you to build credibility and personability. And kind of on that note, I know I've said these words a billion times, but on that note, it's a very effective way to deepen a connection with your listeners. It allows you this sort of two-way communication with listeners, potential clients, if you want to think of it like that as well. You get to engage your audience. You ask questions. You can ask things like what kind of topics they want to hear next. Ask for reviews. It is that two-way street. You're going to be asking for likes, subscriptions, reviews. You're going to ask people to share. So you're building a relationship. And building a relationship is going to humanize you. And when you kind of bring that human aspect to your brand, a lot more people are able to resonate with that. And so that's why I think podcasting is a great tool in your marketing tool belt for your business. So let me not forget about monetization with podcasting and how that can help your business, though I think this could be kind of general if you wanted to just start a podcast but wanted to monetize it. So in my mind, there are these two main ways in which you can monetize your podcast. So we're going to say private subscriptions. That'll be an umbrella term, and advertisement. So private subscriptions and advertisement. Let's go ahead and do ads. Let's talk about ads. So ads are going to help you get money once you kind of have listeners. And while there are some hosting platforms that allow you to open up ad space for, advertisers to purchase and then advertise on, you're not going to see a lot of return on that until your listener numbers are higher. Though it does come off as very professional when you have these ads in your podcasts. Then two, you can also go out and look for sponsorships. You can message people to try to have them sponsor your show, and you can do your own ad reads.
Now, that, again, you'll kind of need to have some listeners for, or you're going to really need to resonate with that company that you're looking for a sponsorship from. Because a lot of the time, they want some visibility as well. And so they're going to look at those numbers and they're going to want to see that you have some followers so that when they sponsor you, they know that their money is, going somewhere where it's going to get in front of eyes or into ears. So you kind of have these routes of advertising. Through your hosting, it can be a little impersonal just because it's open ad space for anyone to purchase. So if you're like really conscientious about who you have advertising on your show, then maybe just having that open ad space isn't for you. But on the other hand, if that doesn't bother you so much and it feels like maybe a lot to reach out to sponsors or to do ad reads, then maybe going through a hosted advertising system is better.
Howdy, listener. Are you also a podcaster seeking to stand out in the crowded audio landscape? I'm here to help. L.Connor Voice, LLC offers top-tier audio engineering, meticulous content management, and more, all tailored to save you time and elevate your podcast to new heights of professionalism. With L.Connor Voice, you can focus on what you do best, creating captivating content, while I handle the rest. Say goodbye to hours spent tweaking audio levels and managing uploads. I ensure your podcast shines with polished sound quality and seamless delivery. Ready to take your podcast to the next level? Contact L.Connor Voice, LLC today and make producing your podcast as easy as hitting record. For more information, go to lconnorvoice.com. Links are in the episode notes.
So we talked about advertising a little bit. Now let's talk about private subscriptions. So that's kind of my umbrella term, as I mentioned before. You kind of, I would say there are some categories underneath that, and I kind of call it like maybe private podcasts and then bonus content. And I'll try to make a good differentiation between the two, right? So maybe for a little context, one of my clients, a few of my clients are actually coaches. One of my clients in particular offers courses online, and they have historically been video courses, but she wanted to make them more accessible. But she still wanted them to be private, just to give that access to her already established clients. So she was able to establish a private podcast where she turned her video courses into audio courses and was able to offer that to her clients, at no extra charge for her clients. But I think having the accessibility is definitely a great sell point there. And kind of on that note, how a private podcast could be different is, maybe a private podcast has more of a stronger theme where maybe bonus content would be something that is, you're just creating more of what you have and putting some of it behind a paywall. So maybe that's how we can differentiate these things is the bonus content is you're already making content at a high rate. And so let's put some of that behind a paywall. And a private podcast is maybe there is a more specific course or a more specific theme that you're trying to put behind a specific paywall. So that's monetization, or my rendition of it. So now we've talked about what a podcast is. We've touched on how a podcast could benefit your business and how you could monetize a podcast. Now, I want to talk about L.Connor Voice and my offerings, how I help my podcaster clients get their podcast done. Essentially, let's just put in this 4-point bullet list. I offer podcast launch services, audio engineering services, content management services, and consulting. So podcast launch services is probably my most amorphous kind of service because it's a mix of consulting and deliverables to get you to a place where you can launch your show. And maybe that's also an important asterisk for my services is that while I do in the future want to have a place where I can invite people to record their podcasts, I do not really have a studio for others to record in. But anyway, So with that sidebar out of the way, with the podcast launch services, we'll have some consulting where we'll talk about like the gear that you need, the gear that's like in your budget, the recording space you have availability to, what kind of scheduling you might be on, and get you set up with a hosting service. And a lot of this is very custom because I don't just work with businesses. I also work with hobbyists, and podcasts can be very different. So it all depends on you and what your vision is. So that's why my podcast launch services are a little amorphous, but kind of the concrete deliverables you'll get out of it is I will provide a podcast icon for you. I'll give you 2 versions. You get a revision, and I'll give you that. I will track down some music for you. I do work with SoundMonk Studios, and we can get you a custom track made, though that is like a little bit of an outsource. I'll also find royalty-free or copyright-free tracks for you to help build that intro. And get you set up with the hosting. So I'll also help kind of like put your show together. That first episode with your intro and the meat of your show, I'll put that together for you for that first episode. And bam, that's my podcast launch service. And that is kind of a la carte. So, I can help you get to a point where you just need a little guidance. But once you're there, you have the reins, you'll just take care of your show. You don't need me for that, but you just need help getting started and kind of needing to know what to do. My podcast launch service is great for that. So once you have your podcast launched, there are other services I offer. So my bread and butter is audio engineering and content management. So I will take your audio, I will clean it up, I'll do background noise cleaning, I will do some EQ, some mixing and mastering, it'll make you sound really nice. I will pretty much put everything together. You have an intro. Let's say you have like a episode specific intro, then your musical intro, the meat of your topic, and then like an ad as well in the middle. I'll take all that audio and I'll put it together into that episode for you. And that's that audio engineering aspect of it. And then my content management is, I pretty much would take all that stuff put together and then I post it on your hosting platform so that all you really have to worry about is recording your episodes, writing your episode notes, and sending them my way. And then your show gets posted online and it keeps going. So to get into a little bit of the nitty gritty with that, my content management services kind of come in packages that are a subscription. So it's monthly payments. I also do 3 months at a time. Doesn't necessarily matter. Whatever works best for you. So I have a basic, a standard, and a deluxe package. My basic package is definitely just like audio engineering. You're going to give me those pieces of your show. I'm going to make it sound nice, put it all together. I'm going to send it back to you to post. That's the basic. Standard is where my content management comes in. So you give me all those pieces of your show. You give me your episode notes and access to your hosting platform, as well as, your desired schedule. And then I'll take all those things, put them together, and get them scheduled for you. No hassle. Then the deluxe package. So the deluxe package is if you want to have the most luxe experience and want to come off as the most professional and polished. So with the deluxe service, I will listen through your entire podcast and I will take out the ums and the uhs. If you have multiple takes, I will take that out as well. I also will write the episode notes for you because I have listened to the whole thing. The only thing I'd need from you at that point might be like relevant links from your guest. But for the most part, the deluxe is like, have fun, record your show, hand me the goods, and I'll just take care of all of it for you. So those are my content management services. Then finally, I have consulting. So consulting is just what it sounds like. It's consulting. I'll talk to you about, the equipment. I'll talk to you about the sound. So like you want to send me a piece of audio, I'll listen to it. I can make some suggestions as to how to improve that audio. Maybe you want some help with like some segment ideas, maybe some content ideas, just whatever whatever things you're having problems with and want some help, just call me and we'll get the consulting done. So, when it comes to podcasting and helping my clients, I would say that one of the biggest things that I help save my clients is time. And I help that through the expertise that I've gained throughout, the 7 years of podcasting I've been doing. I know how to do the audio engineering. If looking at a digital audio workspace makes your head spin, send it to me. I'll take that stress off your plate and I'll save you the time of futzing around with it. If it feels like too much to schedule your episodes, hand it to me. I'll get them scheduled for you. Not a problem. Really, I'm here to help, and I am here to make podcasting as simple as hitting record. So with that, folks, that's our episode for today. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If you want to reach out to me, want to talk about a podcast idea that you have, my links are in the episode notes. Do not hesitate to reach out. I'll also have links to the other stuff, my other podcast, Connor Reads Books, the books that I have done, and the authors that I've worked with. Thank you so much for your time, y'all. And I guess, because I ask everybody, what is my favorite thing about Tucson? Out of the many. Shucks. I'm going to have to say, maybe just keep it simple, is the smell after it rains. I'm recording this on the 26th, and it's been raining pretty nicely in Tucson for the past week. And those nice, kind of humid, cool mornings and the smell of the creosote, it's just perfect. So, with that, folks, thank you so much for your time. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you'd like to. Of course, subscribe, share with a friend, and have a good day. Bye-bye, y'all.
And that's a wrap for another episode of T-Lokes, your go-to podcast for uncovering the untold stories of Tucson's local businesses and nonprofits. A big thank you to our incredible listeners for joining us on this journey of connection and discovery. I want to extend a huge thank you to me for coming on to the show today, talking about L.Connor Voice LLC, sharing some podcasting tips and insights, and sharing how I could help one start their podcasting journey. Show them some love and check out their links in the episode notes. A big thank you to Louis Sanders from Sound Monk Studios for composing the awesome T-Lokes theme music. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected with Tucson's vibrant business scene, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback is invaluable, and it helps us continue bringing you engaging conversations. As we wrap up, remember that T-Lokes isn't just a podcast, it's a community. Let's keep the conversation going on social media. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or our Discord channel and share your thoughts, suggestions, or even recommend a local business or nonprofit you'd like to see featured on the show. Thank you once again for being a part of the T-Lokes community. Until next time, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep supporting the heartbeat of Tucson. Toodaloo.